Welcome to Talk Fulton. I'm Tracy Flanagan. This is a show where we tell people about the inner workings of Fulton County and the people who get it done. That's why it's perfect that we are joined today by our county manager, Mr. Dick Anderson.
Hi,
Welcome.
Tracy.
Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm glad to be with you.
Well, tell us, it's your 10th year anniversary. Congratulations.
Thank you.
A lot of good things have happened in Fulton County, great things. What stands out to you?
Well, looking back, I think, and some of these may not even be that much recognized by the public. We did the first special purpose tax for a transportation set of improvements in Fulton County that we had ever had. And that took our commissioners with our mayors and all the cities to get passed through the legislature. All of our monies had always gone to MARTA, which, by the way, is a good thing because that gave us a rail system in Fulton County that virtually no one else has, obviously in Georgia, but even nationally. So that combined, though, with needed road improvements was $500 million, $500 million that folks really don't know about. Another thing that people may not know about, but equally important, is another $500 million that went into our wastewater infrastructure. That really propels economic growth because without wastewater treatment facilities, you really can't continue to add population, houses, buildings, businesses. That part was focused on North Fulton because of the growth. Now we're shifting our focus to South Fulton, and it'll be another $500 million. So it will be $1 billion in wastewater improvements and $500 million to more than that in transportation. The other thing that stands out to me is we really addressed our buildings. Our buildings had fallen into disrepair. The Board of Commissioners committed over a couple of $100 million in 2 or 3 tranches of bonds. And the impact of that is not just the sight and the sounds, perhaps, when folks come in. I mean, for example, here at 141 Pryor, we have a new assembly hall, a atrium that's world-class, an entry outside that now is used by employees as well as citizens. We completed renovations of 34 libraries. Of course, the penultimate is the central library, but each library looks different, looks new, modernized, welcoming. Of course, Central is over the top, but I think the buildings make a statement. It's not just about that they're in better shape. They say that we're here to serve. They say that we're professionals. People have a different step when they come in to a building like that, both as a customer, citizen customer, but also as employees to serve. I think a great example is our Maxwell Road Service Center. That was a building that was underutilized that now sees more than 5,000 or so folks come in per week for all kinds of different services, tax services to DDS, driver services that we partnered with the state. So all of those physical elements being improved, I think, were huge. In addition to that, what I look back on 10 years was our response when there was a crisis. COVID is the one that everyone remembers, but again, I'm not sure that they fully know the efforts that went into and the team that had to be pulled together inside Fulton County, but with our state partners. I mentioned to you before we started this that Mercedes-Benz Stadium was the largest vaccination site in the Southeast, and it was doing thousands of vaccinations a day. We did that also at 4700 North Point, as well as a number of other locations. And we kept services going through our libraries where that people literally pulled up and dropped off books outside, to seniors where we delivered meals and kept in contact with our seniors even when they couldn't come in. Our courts continue to operate in a virtual sense, which was a phenomenal technological step forward. But most importantly, based on the calculations that we made, we intervened in terms of the projections of the number of people who would be infected with the virus and ultimately would be deceased today, if not for, and our calculations say there's 1,500 people or so living today that would not have gotten through that period of time without all of our employees and our partners' interventions. The last thing I would mention that to me really stands out is Fulton County, almost without exception, is the county that's at the center of elections. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. Obviously, our size and scope, a swing state, the contentiousness of recent elections. But I am really extremely proud because it touches every citizen, and it really underscores how important Fulton County is, but a county government is, that we created an elections hub, consolidated all of our elections functions in one place. It's world class by every evaluation standard that anyone would apply to it. We had press from every continent except Antarctica in the 2024 election. And most importantly, there was an Atlanta Journal-Constitution headline after that election that said, "A prepared Fulton executes flawlessly," or something to that effect. And I think that just says volumes because that also is a team sport. While it's a great credit to Nadine Williams, who runs election and the Board of Registration and Elections, it really requires everyone from IT to facilities to our administrative staff, HR, the finance staff, to really pull together in a whole of government approach to make that election, which had enormous scrutiny, a very, very successful one. And that may be, to me, one of the proudest moments that I've seen in the recent Fulton County history.
And that has been great for me as well because I was in a position to answer phone calls
Oh, my
from
gosh.
people who had questions about the election or they were upset about it.
Sure.
So I really appreciate the efforts that have gone into that. And another thing I thought about while you were talking is also signage. I worked in the courthouse a long time,
Yes.
and people really get confused about where they're supposed to go. There are 3 buildings that are put together, but there was a new system of signage, labeling things, and also kiosk where people could get information.
Yes.
And so that went a long way.
No, I think was a tremendous improvement that honestly I undervalued, and folks kept telling me what you just said. Or so we're being stopped in the hallways by folks saying, "Where do I go? Where is magistrate court? Where do I file for probate? Where?" And I think by underestimating it, perhaps, but again, our folks just bringing it to our attention. And then Dennis King, who no longer works here, but was a good friend of mine from the Bell South days, really spearheaded that along with the Dream staff, and I think they did a tremendous job. And this signage, in fact, I just took a picture of the one that's at Peachtree and MLK and sent it to Dennis recently. I said, "Your legacy lives on," because it now, of course, is external on the buildings as well as internal. And we're going to do the same thing across the street at 141 as we've done in the courts. But the courts are where there's 600,000 visitors a year, believe it or not. It's just a phenomenal center of activities, and that wayfinding was very much needed.
Definitely. And the signs outside, all of the photographers appreciate that.
Oh, that's good.
Looks really good.
Well,
Looks really good.
the sign that we're most proud of is the Fulton County logo that goes across Pryor, where the bridge is. And that was another kind of idea that bubbled up from folks that were thinking about things. And they said, we're getting ready to do a lot here. Why, now that we have a new logo, which I give a huge amount of credit to Jessica Corbett and work that went into determining how do we modernize our logo? Well, now that we have that, don't we want to put it somewhere prominent? And that bridge, if you really watch news shows and the like, it starts there often, showing our logo and then goes to whatever story they're covering. I think that was just it was a masterstroke, again, that came up from ideas that were brought forward, and then our Board of Commissioners that allowed us to do it.
I love capturing it, and maybe at different times of the day with the lighting and the courthouse in the background,
Yes.
or the county building in the background. So it's really nice.
It is. I've even seen it in a snowstorm. It even comes through in that, believe it or not.
Well, how do you see your role as county manager?
I'll say it this way. it's definitely not. Of course, I was trained in the private sector and have run organizations, large organizations, and function as a CEO of divisions. It's not that, because there the structure more or less does ultimately keep coming up to one individual with some ultimate authority. This is much more like a player coach, I would call it. In other words, we're very complex in terms of 40 or so departments. There's over 20 elected officials who clearly don't report to me. They report to their constituencies and the electorate. But the organization does need to work together. And it needs to work together whether you're talking about how finances or how budgets are allocated, how IT or technology supports the organization, how the buildings are aligned. The HR policies, of course, maybe most importantly, because all of those departments employ talented folks that we need to recruit and retain. So from that perspective, as much as I can, I try to apply private sector practices, but with a clear recognition, this is the public sector. So there are differences, and you can suggest, coach, demonstrate in some cases, but it's definitely not a top-down approach. And I say player because what I have found is as I mentioned, when there is a crisis, again, COVID is a great example. The cyber attack is, again, a very good example, that then the organization does respond to one voice, at least, that has, and in those cases do have emergency powers that the board grants. And I work very closely with the chairman, Chairman Pitts. In fact, I think during COVID, we say, at least to ourselves, because we think it's true, that in many times we were the only two people in the office. And the reason that worked so well, it was the combination of operations and policy that could make decisions very quickly when needed, and then have those decisions ratified later. So we were both probably playing during that period of time as well as normally being coaches.
Anybody who watches the Board of Commissioners meetings will see you as the subject matter expert and also a voice of neutrality to come in and to give them expert advice. And so that's appreciated.
Well, what I would do is probably reflect that on the staff that we have. I am nowhere near the expert that Dr. Pamela Rochelle is when we're talking about health and human services and the homeless, the healthcare gaps in South Fulton. I'm nowhere near the subject matter expert that Sharon Whitmore is when we start talking about our cash position, our outlook on revenues, how expenses are projected. I'm nowhere near the expert, and I've never seen a guy that's as much of an expert as Joe Davis is when it comes to facilities. He not only knows it, he has just worked it that day if you have a question about it. It's incredible. I know not a tenth of what David Clark knows about wastewater treatment and the hundreds of millions that we're investing. So, and those are just a few. I could go through virtually every department and point out the expertise, which I think is one of, again, the hidden strengths of Fulton County, is these deep knowledge professionals. Again, another just that comes to mind when I say that is one of my favorites is Dr. Ferdinand. The guy is an IBM executive by training, but has dedicated himself to public service. And he knows, which, I was always trained as a sales and marketing executive first, nothing starts without the revenue. Without his abilities to help us go and navigate the process of the property tax assessments, which of course are done by the assessor's office, but then the importance of that bill being presented and then collected with such efficiency, we could not do anything. And Dr. Ferdinand is, again, a classic example of an expert that, again, may not be recognized by all, but certainly is and appreciated by me. So I hope that because I have all of those experts, again, I can call upon them and help a position be put forward that maybe is more clear because we have this deep expertise.
Excellent, excellent. What are the priorities for 2026 and beyond?
On the one hand, I think they're obvious, but on the other hand, sometimes I'm not sure that the public fully appreciates these. But let me hit two or three of them. First and foremost, everyone is aware that we have to address conditions at the Fulton County Jail. The board has just approved a $1.1 billion capital improvement program for the jail, and it starts with the construction of an 1,800-bed special purpose building for folks who have behavioral health, physical health, or other needs that are different than a general population of detainees. But in addition to that is a complete renovation of the Rice Street facility. Both of those will be multi-year in nature. Nothing like this can be done quickly. It will require all the investment that I just mentioned, but also time and a set of partners that we will go through a rigorous procurement process to select. But it's a priority, not only because of the conditions, but also because of the DOJ investigation and the consent order that we entered into. The second part of that is not just about the building. There are a whole set of staffing and policy issues and practices that the DOJ also mentioned needed to be addressed. That's more in the sheriff's office responsibility set, but we support that either with technology, with HR practices, with enhancements to compensation that are being considered. So we work together to make that happen. But I think those two things are very much at the top of the list. But as we told our cities, as we were negotiating with them about how to distribute sales taxes, this is a 10-year event or so that occurs, and as we presented our case for enhancements to the amount that we received, we said we had two priorities. The one I just mentioned, the second one was health care. And sometimes folks don't recognize the county's position in health care, but it's a very prominent one when we're talking about health care gaps, health care equity, serving those that don't have insurance. We are an owner in and primary funder of Grady Hospital, along with DeKalb, although Grady itself has grown so significantly in their own financial capability and management of their finances that they still view us as valuable partners, but they themselves are generating much of this. And I want to give Grady tremendous credit for not only running a huge enterprise that is the public safety hospital for Fulton County, but partnering with us to address the healthcare gaps that Dr. Rochelle identified in a study that she led a couple of years ago that were principally focused in South Fulton. The differences between North, Central, and South Fulton are extreme in terms of health care, and they result in almost a 5-year difference in terms of mortality tables. So it has real impacts. But with partnering with Grady, they have already planned for a standalone emergency room that's located right next door to our elections hub in Union City. Just visited there a week or so ago. It's not only out of the ground, it'll be finished next April and then staffed and operational by June. So it will be seeing thousands of folks annually that otherwise would have been trying to drive either down into Coweta County or up to Midtown or to Grady to get service. They'll be able to get service right in their own neighborhood. And even more important, perhaps, is there is a longer-term plan for a full-scale hospital to go in there. That still has to be approved by the Grady Board and approved by the Fulton County Board, but I think the commitment is there to do that as well. So that's an enormous priority for us. And I think third is this whole area of behavioral health. I want to give Latrina Foster tremendous credit for having the vision that this was a growing, important area, understanding that we couldn't do it all, that what we needed to do was partner with a number of providers, which we do now, and we see thousands of people annually for behavioral health services. And then last has really been the quarterback, since we were using sports analogy a minute ago, to point us in a direction that diversion services and behavioral health crisis services are not only critical needs, but also are helpful to the jail population. In other words, why are folks ending up in the Fulton County Jail? And by the way, 40 to 70% is a number that's included in the Jail Monitor report now of folks in our jail that have some level of behavioral health issue. Those two facilities that are now staffed and operational, a diversion center at the Atlanta Detention Center that we jointly fund with Atlanta, and then a behavioral health crisis center that is on Metropolitan, that is funded by us and by the state of Georgia, and a second behavioral health crisis center that is now approved and planned for construction on North Point Parkway. Those huge initiatives that didn't exist previously but now are coming online are a priority. And they will be, I think, for the foreseeable future, because it's such an extreme case in society now. And, of course, just the most recent school shooting is a prime example of that we're all saddened by and horrified by. But this issue of behavioral health is one that I believe we got clearly on the front end of with Latrina and Dr. Rochelle's leadership, and with partners, City of Atlanta and State of Georgia, that will be at the forefront of addressing. And then the last thing I would say that's a priority, and this may sound pedestrian and trite, but it is providing service to citizens. That's why we're here. And I want to, again, give a shout out to all the 5,000 employees that every day, no matter what we're having to deal with, a consent order, a construction of a behavioral health crisis center, dealing with the jail, they are dealing with citizens who have a water bill that they don't understand, have a tag that they need to transfer from another state, have a probate issue that they need to get through, have a court case that needs to be filed. It's amazing to me that no matter what is going on up, if you will, in the atmospherics of Fulton County, at the day-to-day level, because I think we have great employees and we have terrific managers and leaders, are focused on that customer or that citizen being treated as a customer, maybe it's even better phrasing, that's standing right in front of them. And that is a priority and should remain so.
And the customer service initiatives have been great as well. Also, recognizing employees who are service legends, the
Yes.
Focus Awards, to recognize excellence where peers nominate each other. And so that's been great.
I mean, I think it's one of the best things that we do, quite honestly. I give, again, Bridget Bailey tremendous credit for that, and Jessica Corbett, because it's two different programs, and they have their own focus, no pun intended. But I think that says a lot, because it really says, first of all, we have all these examples. In other words, that's why we need two programs, and that's why we need a quarterly recognition and then an annual. We're not without many people who we just continue to find, whether they're recognized by their peers or they're recognized by a citizen, that deserve recognition, and they thrive on that recognition, as we all do. So I'm really proud of, again, those programs, both the Focus and the Customer Legend programs. But what I'm most proud of are the examples of those employees. And I try to write, I do write a note to each one that comes forward, just to say, gosh, I see you, and that's phenomenal. And some of the stories of the heroics to the customer service level are just unbelievable to me.
And it's very gratifying. I also like the Years of Service Awards. FGTV is very proud to have people who've worked here 20 years or more. And so that speaks to what Fulton County has to offer.
Very much.
And people who love their work.
Yes, very much. And then when that room fills up, it'll be hundreds of years of service that are in that room. And again, sometimes I think as well, gosh, I wonder if the citizens really know this, or do they think it's just a monolithic organization? No, it's folks who have dedicated their lives to public service, and they do it not for necessarily recognition and pay. They have a heart for service.
What's next on the horizon for Fulton County?
Well, again, like I said, I think clearing out some of the issues that I talked about. FIFA is coming up, and I do think FIFA is not a small issue. Our chairman says Fulton is a big deal, and I think that captures the essence of Fulton County, as I understand it, and from some of my former colleagues from Bell South who now run the convention bureau, as well as others at the Chamber of Commerce. This is like multiple Super Bowls in a course of 6 to 8 weeks. We will also have another Super Bowl. We'll have a college football championship. We'll have another Final Four. Atlanta is on, and Metro Atlanta and Fulton County is on fire as it relates to being the centerpiece of things of that nature. We were just recognized last year as the 4th ranked county, not in Georgia, not in the Southeast, in the entire United States, for economic development. And I've got this cup here with me this morning. It says Select Fulton. Well, that's the statement I give, again, Samir Abdullahi, as well as the rest of our economic development effort, the Development Authority, everything that the state does, our workforce development, the infrastructure that I talked about. There's all kinds of reasons that this is a place that people want to be. Either they want their corporations to be here, they want to be here. That has led to a county that's just, again, in a preeminent position. And so I think that is on the horizon, is just more big events. That FIFA set of games will bring worldwide attention. So we're very hopeful that then that, of course, equates to economic development. And our chairman does a tremendous job going around the world. In fact, he's coming back from an international trip as we speak, because he's out talking about what a great place Fulton County is.
Well, getting back to staff, what is your message to staff that may not have an opportunity to talk to you one-on-one? You talk to a lot of people, but there are so many employees here. What is your message to them?
My message is, first and foremost, that they're appreciated, because I think sometimes, certainly in the day-to-day, they may feel like, gosh, I've just gone through another difficult day. I'm not, no one's recognized me. And I want them to know, when it's all said and done, they really are recognized. They're recognized by the citizens that they serve. They're recognized by the family that they provide for. They're recognized when, their instance of service bubbles up and we're able to pull it forward. But that's first and foremost what I would say to them, because the organization does not run without our employees. It cannot be done. We can't automate. This is not an artificial intelligence sort of issue that can be dealt with. So it very much relies on people. And like you mentioned, Tracy, a minute ago, it relies on people that have this long set of experiences, either over the years or intensively while they've been involved in something. And they combine that with a heart for public service. That can't be replicated. So they should know that not only are they appreciated, they're unique. It's not like we can just plug and play anyone into government service. And I'm a case in point. I had to learn my way, more or less, from telecom into government because of the differences. It's not an easy transition. And then I would say, lastly, that this is a great place to work. I know it can be frustrating at times, but I guess I would assure them, having worked at Bell South, worked at AT&T, worked at the Federal Reserve, worked in state government, and worked here, every organization has its frustrations. But this is one that where truly we're attempting to make it a great place to work. And we recognize that employees are the center of that. So provide us feedback. In other words, you have every opportunity to provide feedback directly, indirectly to your management. We, have talked to, I think it's 1,800 or so now in the sessions that I've had over the course of 10 years or so. And we're beginning to do those again. So those are good forums. But every opportunity is an opportunity to provide feedback on how to make Fulton County better.
Well, the chat and chew, that has been great. That's
Right.
what you described. Also, I like when you go and visit various teams,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a way for the public to experience it as you do. And then employees get to see that you care about what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
the boots on the ground,
Right.
so to speak.
No, I love doing that. I mean, sometimes it's opportunistic, like we have a water line break. Sometimes it's planned, like a riding exercise with the marshals. Sometimes it's just I was in a location and decided to stop at a library. But it really is, of course, it's reinforcing because you see what folks are doing every day and you see the impact that they're having.
Well, I wanted to thank you again for joining us. We've learned so much here, and I know that our audiences will benefit from this greatly. So thank you so
No,
much.
thank you. Appreciate being invited.
Always, always. You're always welcome to come back.
All right.
And we can continue the conversation.
Sounds good.
Well, that does it for this episode of Talk Fulton. I'm Tracy Flanagan with FGTV. Please know that FGTV is your source for county news.